yours to another episode of Beyond the Campfire. I am one of your hosts, Stephen the Indian, along with Will the Cowboy. And we are a cowboy and Indian that talks about ghosts, cryptids, conspiracy theories, all the like. So, if you are interested in that kind of content, be sure to follow our podcast. And you can also connect with us on Instagram, X, and TikTok under the handle Beyond Campfire or Beyond Campfire Podcast. So be sure to follow us there. We release new episodes every every Friday at 5 p.m. And yeah, that's what I got. So, Will, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we finally are shifting to more summer themed stuff. We've kind of failed in that department the past 3 weeks because we had Steven. I messed up. I'm the one who makes the episodes. I just tell Steven what to do.
To be fair, June 21st, or June 20th rather, was the first day of summer. So, we might not be 3 days behind. Maybe we're more like a week or two.
A week, yeah.
Because
right. we had Edgar Allan Poe last week. So yeah, we're right where we need to be.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? Well, we're shifting over to a cryptid because I don't think we've not had a cryptid in a bit. Kind of, I think.
Well, we did the Beast of Bray Road not too long ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah.
So about 3 weeks ago.
Before the Beast of Bray Road, yeah, it had been a while. So
okay. Well, don't worry.
Hey, I'm always down to do a cryptid.
This time we got a cryptid. So pack your swim gear because we're heading to the tropics, and it's not for vacation. Sorry, we're going there to find a cryptid. So I hope you brought your sunscreen and your scuba gear because we're heading to the islands of Andros, right? The Andros is an archipelago, and when I say archipelago, it's like smaller islands kind of combined into one. In the Bahamas, they're actually the largest of the Bahamian islands. And even though it's an archipelago, politically, the Bahama nation recognizes it one full island, so that's why it's so big. It's got an area greater than all the other 700 Bahamian islands combined, so it's a pretty big island.
Okay, gotcha. So, yeah, no, definitely sounds like this. And you said this island, or I guess these islands are in the Bahamas.
Yep.
So
how,
I gotta ask, how far away is it from the Bermuda Triangle? Just out of curiosity.
Out of curiosity, it's like south of it.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, who knows? Maybe today's cryptid was in the Bermuda Triangle and then they swam over. I don't know.
Well, actually, the problem with it is that this cryptid is actually not in the ocean. It's in caves.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So the creature.
Very quick side tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I hear about anybody going to explore a cave and then something bad happens, I'm like, dude, you did it to yourself. Like, no one asked you to go into a cave.
Dude, I hate cave exploring.
Yeah. Like, for those that have found the caves and said, okay, yeah, this cave is safe, you can come explore it. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. I'll go to that.
Yeah.
I'll go to the Bell Witch's cave, right? Yeah. But yeah, like trying to find a new cave, like heck no, man.
You ready for me to make it even worse? Do you know what's worse than a cave?
What's that?
An underwater cave.
Oh yeah, no, like
that's where we're going.
But the level just goes up. So,
like, I mean, after hearing about like the Nutty Putty cave incident, have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
That was like a couple years ago. Basically, this guy was like, it was in the Nutty Putty cave, and so he took a wrong turn and ended up like kind of like an angle like this and was stuck. And they couldn't get him out and he died.
Wait, is that the picture I always see on X where
like the guy's feet are sticking out?
Yes.
Do you remember like when the meme came out and it was like when I find just like a very small crack, and I got that cave diver in me, and they
Yeah,
like place their like shoes or whatever.
right. So that's where that meme comes from.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. See,
You know what's even scarier?
what's that?
After he died and rescue operations were called off, they sealed off the cave. His body's still down there.
Oh my gosh. So they weren't even able to retrieve it to
Nope.
bring him to his own funeral. That's wild stuff.
See,
Oh my,
that's what just I don't like about caves is that like it's like, you know, you're under the ground and it's like you can't get out. If you get stuck, you're stuck. You're gonna die down there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, not something I would do, Bob. Not something I would do.
Uh-uh. So this creature is usually seen in the vast amount of blue holes on the island. Um, if you don't know what a blue hole is, it's basically like a massive sinkhole or cavern that is kind of opened up to the surface. Um, most are found in the ocean or on islands. There are apparently over 200 of these holes on Andros. Now, these can be connected. They all can be kind of connected. So there's like an underwater cave network. So a lot of times the way that these caves are formed or these sinkholes are formed is there'll be like cave networks that run underneath the island, and then like a sinkhole opens up and then opens up the cave to the surface. So I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they also connect to the ocean. So there's this massive cave network under Andros, and there's these little blue holes, as they call them, of like these like gigantic ponds where you can dive into it and you can dive down and go into the cave network. That's where the creature lives.
That's okay, yeah. That terrifies me because you could just be walking by a cave and I feel like today's creature could just almost come up and just grab you and take you. Like that's wild stuff.
Yeah. So, in case you want me to terrify you even more about these blue holes, some of the blue holes that are famous on this island, they go pretty deep. So we've got the Uncle Charlie's blue hole, which is also known as Little Frenchman's blue hole. I hate calling it a blue hole because it's like that one is about 120 feet deep. Captain Bill's blue hole is about 100 feet, 100 plus feet deep.
Okay,
However,
so
some holes.
gonna be an adult. I'm gonna stop laughing. Sorry. Okay, all right. I've let it out.
Yeah, I love to dive into Uncle Charlie's blue hole.
I oh man, I can yeah, I see why you hate calling it that because it's just right there.
It's right
These
there.
jokes write themselves, right? So
Um,
okay, but I'm gonna be an adult
yeah.
for the rest of the show. I
Now the
promise.
deepest one, Castell's blue hole, is over 400 feet deep.
Okay, 400
That's a
feet.
deep blue hole.
That yes, it is. Yes. All right. You know what? Obviously, I am incapable of being an adult, so I think we're just gonna have to roll with me being a kid for this episode. So
And then, so there's no telling what can be down there in a 400-foot deep hole, you know?
yeah,
So I've been talking about this thing and I've not stated its name. You ready to know what its name is?
what is it?
It is called the Lusca.
The Lusca.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, when I was doing
Lusca.
my
Go
research,
look in the blue hole. That sounded better in my head.
and this is
Okay.
why he's single. Imagine walking up to a lady at a bar and being like, "Hey, girl, let's go explore your blue hole."
I got. Hey man, I wasn't gonna go there, but
There
that's
you go.
there's Riz and then there's like what anti Riz. I think that's what they call
I
it.
think that's anti-riz.
Yeah, that's some anti Riz right there. So.
Anyways, all right. So,
this episode is going off the rails very fast. So.
oh man, we can't do this one with a straight face. This is what happens when you record back to back. You start getting more and more crazy and unhinged. Anyways, so when I was looking up the descriptions for this creature, the Lusca, I was sitting there. I'm like, wait a second, this sounds like the Kraken. So I made sure to like look up because you're probably sitting there when I describe this thing to you. You're probably like, that's the Kraken. It's not the Kraken. There's a difference. Okay. Kraken is Scandinavian, and this is this Bahamian brother. All right. As well, They do have there's several accounts of what the Lusca could look like, but there are also some of those accounts kind of also describe the Kraken, but when you look at the behavior of them, it's a little different. So the Lusca can appear as a large octopus. However, it could also be a large cuttlefish. And there is a more terrifying version, which a lot of people have reported seeing, which is that it's a half octopus and half shark combo. So imagine the front end of a shark, right, with those big old teeth, and then instead of a fin on the back, it's just got tentacles.
Okay, yeah. So half shark, half octopus, kind of, maybe.
Yeah, and it's 75 feet long.
75 feet long. Oh, that's crazy.
So they're both are folklore. One is Scandinavian folklore. The Lusca is actually written in a lot of Bahamian folklore. Is it Bahamian? Bahama Mama folklore? And it's kind of the idea behind the Lusca is that it's not like the Kraken where it's like the Kraken is I'm just going to terrorize anything and everything because I'm just a dick. The Lusca, on the other hand, is more of like I am protecting the blue hole and I'm going to protect it. And it's like a mythical creature that like protects the blue hole, but people have encountered it. And we actually will have at the end of this theories on what it actually could be. So you're kind of wondering, right? I'm like, oh, it protects the blue hole. And you're like, well, what happens if I get caught on its property? Well, you don't want to know what it does to trespassers because it's terrifying.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I am happening to wander around a blue hole for whatever reason, what could my penalty, we'll say, what would that be?
It will wrap its tentacle around you and pull you down to the bottom of the blue hole, drowning you.
Oh yikes. So I would not be able to escape the blue hole once I.
And apparently the divers go missing. Nobody has ever seen the bodies of some of the divers that have been killed by this thing, if any divers have been, because what happens is their diving suits and stuff wash up on shore shredded with no body.
Oh, that's crazy. That's actually insane. Okay.
And here's the crazy thing. Now, reported in recent years in these blue holes, because these blue holes are like a diver's wet dream. Because I probably shouldn't have. I was trying to make a joke about water and being wet, but I think it went the wrong way.
You
Anyway,
did that one on purpose. That wasn't a mistake.
no, I was trying to be a dad over here and make a dad joke about divers
Oh, okay,
getting
okay.
wet.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Well,
Anyways,
look, man, had we not talked about blue holes and other stuff before you said
tentacles.
that, it would have been okay. But it's like in the context of all of what we've been doing on this episode already, it's just you throw that out there on top of it, and
Oops.
it's just building onto everything else. So
Yeah. So, anyways, so there actually have been reported deaths in recent years. Now, are these attributed to the Lusca? Who knows? Are they just that divers happen to go too deep and get stuck and drown, or they go too deep and they can't get back up in time? Pressure changes. There are people who have died of natural causes, but some of these deaths, it makes you wonder, could some of these have been contributed to the Lusca? You want to guess how many people have died in recent years in these holes?
56. I don't know.
130 to 200 people.
130 to 200. Wow. Okay, these are some killer holes over here. So
But when you got a gigantic octopus half shark thing living down there, who knows?
yeah, it's
And diving is not an easy thing. I feel like
your odds of survival are not too great when you're encountering something like that. For
no.
sure.
Did you know I almost could have been scuba certified?
No, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. I took a class in college my freshman year, and like had COVID not happened, I would have had a chance to actually get scuba certified.
That is really awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Stupid COVID.
But now in the ChatGPT story for today, I am scuba certified. So
Hey, man, it's never too late. You could get it even now.
I know I could. I still could. Maybe I do, and we go look
But
for
hey,
this
I
thing.
mean, yeah, I'll give that to you, man. Most people haven't taken a scuba diving class or whatever, so if you're gonna be scuba certified in the Chat GPT story, like I'll roll with it.
So that's the creature, right? It is known to inhabit the island of Andros, where it lives in these blue holes that are these caves underneath the island. It's a really big half octopus, half shark monster. However, there actually could be truth to these legends. So a lot of encounters, like I said, this has been a Bahamian folklore story for centuries. And this has just been stories passed down word of mouth and all this. The first documented case we have actually goes back pretty far. Possibly the first alleged encounter with the giant octopus in the Bahamas is actually reported to have occurred in 1836. But the guy who encountered it didn't really write about it till 1863. And the guy who encountered this is actually French journalist Benedict Henry Rivoli, and his book. I hate French. Peches dans Aerimigi du Nord.
I mean, hey, sounds close enough to me, man.
Ameriku. All
I
right. Anyways, Rivali, he spent most of his time up in New York, and that's like where he kind of wrote his books. He kind of came over here from France and kind of like lived in New York and wrote books. I did a little bit of research about this guy beforehand. And while he was there, he apparently claimed that there was this American captain who told him the story of his boat being attacked by a kraken in Lucayas, which Lucayas back then was what we call the Bahamas now. So this is the excerpt from his story. It says
right.
an American cat. So this is like directly from. Actually, sorry, back it up. So the captain said a ship was attacked, and the creature actually dragged off two of his own sailors on the boat. So this is from the book, translated to English. An American captain, whom I knew well in New York, told me that in 1836, being at landfall in the Lucayas Islands, his ship had been attacked by a kraken, which, extending its gigantic arms, had reached up and dragged two of her crew into the sea. In vain, their comrades sought to rescue these two, unfortunate from death. All their efforts were useless. The crew had, however, scored a partial victory, for with a hatchet, the chief helmsman had severed one of the arms of the polypus. This monstrous appendage was 3.5 meters long and the size of a man.
Golly, yeah, that is.
In case we're wondering, 3 meters into feet for us Americans, that's about 9 feet.
So, was this the length of the tentacle or the creature?
This was the length of just one of its arms.
Wow. Okay, gotcha.
So the creature attacked the boat, and then they fought back. Unfortunately, they lost two guys, but in the fight, the chief helmsman like took a hatchet and cut off one of the arms.
Yeah.
And when he cut it off, they found out that it was about 3 meters or 9 feet long. That's a big arm.
That's a big arm, yeah. Because I mean, you said this thing was what 75
feet long.
Right. So yeah, it would have a massive arm.
So the captain of this story, he claims that he gave the arm to Burnham's American Museum. So he got it, gave it to a museum in New York. However, when Rivoli saw it preserved in a jar of alcohol, it looked shriveled and folded on itself. Now, here's the problem. Many of the exhibits in the museum, which include the Fiji mermaid, were fakes. And Addison Variel, who described and later, reputed the octopus gigantitis, was inclined to doubt Rivoli's story. Bernard Hovesman initially thought that the arm was more likely to have been cut from a giant squid than an octopus, although he later told Michael Raynell that he had changed his mind. So the arm went to this one person who had this museum where there was even like a Fiji mermaid, because we'll maybe cover mermaids at some point. They were like, it's probably not from an octopus. It's more probably like from a squid. But either way, this museum was known to have hoaxes. So some people doubted Reynolds' story. Either way, fun story, really cool encounter.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where there's a few reports of it, and there's descriptions of what it might look like, how long it is. I am skeptical so far just because there's alternative explanations.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have these blue holes, and it's just like, okay, could a giant creature live down there and drag things into it? Sure. Could potentially other creatures, or maybe not even just creatures, but could like whirlpools and other stuff suck people in? Also possible. But I'm seeing. I'm already fascinated by the way this thing looks. Right, like it's
Mhm.
just it's an interesting creature for sure.
Yeah. So the next encounter was in 1872 by a man by the name of J.S. George of Nassau in the Bahamas. He wrote to an American naturalist describing a colossal octopus found dead on the beach. The journal paraphrased his account, referring to a huge octopus 10 feet long, each arm measuring 5 feet. The weight was estimated at between 200 and 300 pounds. The monster was found dead upon the beach and bore marks of injury. Here's where it gets interesting. Raynell kind of felt that although the size of the octopus was not substantial, its alleged weight was far greater than any known octopus and seemingly out of proportion with its size. Um,
That is interesting to me. Okay.
Possibly the result of severe miscalculation on George's part. So part of the thing was they said, okay, there's this gigantic squid or octopus, 10 feet. It's got 5 foot arms. It weighs 200, 300 pounds. And they're sitting there and they're like, okay, if the weight is 200, 300 pounds, there's no way that's the weight of this thing because of how, like, you look at how little its arms are, it just didn't add up. And so that's why they thought there's a miscalculation on George's account of this. However, as these specimens' arms were also much shorter in comparison to the body than most octopuses, Raynal suggested that the marks of the injury could have included severed arms, making the octopus's actual size much greater and more in line with the weight calculated by George. So because George was like, this thing got attacked, there was signs of injury, it's possible that the reason why the arms were shorter was because something ate them off.
Interesting. Ate them off. That
Ate them off, bit them off, cut them off, something happened.
Yeah, something to where limbs are no longer attached to the body. That's crazy. My goodness.
Well, yeah, our 1938 encounter just a little bit will kind of probably explain what could have gotten a hold of it. So 1925, Forrest G. Wood went down to survey of the Grand Bahamians, the commissioner of the island, and he was also an Andros native. Wait, sorry. So in 1956, Forrest G. Wood went to survey the Bahamian Islands because he was the commissioner. An Andros native told him that he had seen a giant scuttle when he was about 12 years old, which would have been about 1925. The guy claimed that him and his father and a companion were fishing in about 600 feet deep of water. Something bit the hook. And then through clear water, they could see that it was a very large octopus. It detached from the hook and grabbed the bottom of the boat before letting go and returning to deeper water. The Forrest G. Wood. Wait, my bad. So Forrest G. Wood was surveying the Grand Bahamians. The commissioner of the island, who was the Andor native, told him the story when he was 12. The guy did not specify how large the octopus was, but stated that it was much larger than any known species.
Huh.
So yeah, you had this guy kind of go down there surveying the Bahamas, and then the island commissioner, who was an Andor native, was like, "Oh yeah, let me tell you about this time me and my dad went fishing. Right? We saw 600 foot in 600 foot deep water. We saw a large octopus, bigger than an octopus I ever seen."
Yeah, no, that's genuinely wild to me.
In 1938, shortly before his retirement, American sailor named Frank Hurricane Clark claimed in a newspaper interview that he observed a giant octopus of unknown size 500 miles east of the Bahamas. But he apparently claims that he saw this octopus getting torn apart by tiger sharks. And this is what was written. Then 500 miles east of the Bahamas, I lay beclaimed for 3 days while a large squall slowly built up between me and land. I knew it was a hurricane. It was then that a giant octopus came near the tiny boat and was attacked by tiger sharks. I took cover in the cabin because that was one time I was afraid. You never saw such a thrashing and churning in all your life. The sharks finally took him under.
I am just kind of astounded by the tiger sharks details. So there's just tiger sharks swimming around there with
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. There are
Gosh,
tiger sharks in the Bahamas.
yeah, yeah, no, fair enough. It's just the thought of like you fall into the ocean, the Lusca's possibly circling around, but then there's also tiger sharks you got to deal with. I'm just like, man, you can't catch a break.
Yeah, they're commonly encountered in the Bahamas, particularly at a location there's a place called Tiger Beach.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Tiger Beach. That's not. Wow. Okay.
Wait, where's Tiger Beach in comparison to Tiger Beach?
Wherever it is, I don't want to go there. I'll say that much.
It's about roughly 20 miles off the coast of the west end of the Grand Bahamian Island. Let's see, I can find it on the map.
Yeah, go for it.
That's not where I want. No. That's not the right place. All right, it looks like it's on the like a little bit north of where we're at. So
Okay, so enough to where the Lusca and tiger sharks could potentially run into each other.
Yep. So in 1941, after we're going to kind of jump a little bit. So Forrest G. Wood, you remember that guy we talked about just earlier?
Yeah, I do. So he's back, huh?
Mm-hmm. So in 1941, after he published an article in Natural History describing the Lusca and other giant octopuses, there was a U.S. Navy officer named John C. Martin who wrote to him and said that he saw something off the coast of Florida around Fort Lauderdale and St. Augustine in March or April of 1941. So it's not just in the Bahamas; it can kind of venture a little bit. At the time, he'd been coxswain on the USS Chicopee and was on watch at the forecastle when he noticed a large object ahead of the ship. This is his report. Dead ahead of our course appeared something on the surface of the water that could not readily be described. The closer we approached, it looked like a huge pile of brown kelp, seaweed. As it moved into view, there was no doubt as to its identity. The coils of its arms were looped up like huge coils of mandolin rope. However, the coils were over 36 inches in circumference. This last deduction was compared to the girth of my waist at the time. Martin believed the animal kind of came up from the depths by the activities of a pair of destroyers, which were disturbing local waters. Until he read Wood's article, he had not realized that what he saw could have been something unknown to science. So the guy saw it, and he didn't really think much of it until he read what Wood had told in his article written before. And was kind of like, wait a second, I think I just saw something strange.
Yeah, sure sounds like it.
In a later telephone interview, he kind of told Wood that although the entire gun crew had seen the animal in good light, the sighting was probably not recorded in the ship's log. Raynell, who accepted Martin's sincerity, though not his accuracy, argues that the spectrum was likely either dead or close to death. So we're going to kind of jump a bit.
I like the reports. That's the part where I'm like, okay, I kind of.
There was one that was spotted before 1997. And then, but we're going to get more into the modern stuff, and then we'll give our theories, and then we'll go into ChatGPT. So before 2009, so I used to like watching this show with this guy named Josh Gates. I've mentioned him before. I would like to one day probably have him on the podcast if we get that popular. So 2009, Josh Gates went to Andros to find this, because what Josh Gates did is kind of like what we're doing, where we want to eventually go hunt these things and look for them. So while he was there, he interviewed an Andros fisherman named Peter Douglas, who claimed to have seen a giant tentacled animal while diving in a blue hole. This is what he reported. I was down the ocean blue hole, and as I checked it out, it just came up off the bottom. And it was mainly a murkyish, grayish, brownish color, And then behind it, I just saw a couple of tentacles rise above the bottom as it slowly turned around and went back in. It's at least 40, 50 feet. It's huge.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's the multiple reports, especially from like the guy you just described. It's one of those things where I at least need to take pause and say, okay, all of these people are saying something. And, although the Lusca to me sounds a little bit fishy, pun intended, of being a shark, half octopus type thing, all of these reports, I mean, there's something big in those waters that people are encountering and that are leading to people's death. So it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. So there was another encounter where there's this fisherman, another fisherman who was interviewed by Josh Gates in 2009. His name is Rupert Timir. He said that he saw the Lusca, and he described it as looking kind of like part of an octopus. He was actually again interviewed in 2016 by Jeremy Wade when Jeremy Wade was kind of looking for this creature. You know who Jeremy Wade is, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, River Monsters. When he talked to Wade, he actually gave him a lot more of a detailed account of the sighting. He said it was a shark-headed animal with tentacles, which he allegedly saw while fishing in deep water off Andros. He says, we were fishing for Dorado, and we happened to come across this strange animal. I thought it was a whale shark, but getting within 50 feet of it, found out it was a strange animal with tentacles and the head of a shark. The head was kind of similar to a mako shark. Has a real pointed nose. The tentacles was the last thing that we saw. The whole thing was about 8 feet. I'll always remember that until the day I die.
Okay, yeah. So we're getting some more cred having right like the River Monsters guy and some other stuff's happening. So okay.
Yeah. So that's all I've kind of got for encounters before the ChatGPT story. Like I said, there's plenty of counters out there. Locals have claimed to have seen this. You probably could find a diver or two out there that have claimed to have seen this. But what's really interesting about the 2016 incident is Jeremy Wade actually kind of gave an idea of what he thinks this could be. He believes it's real. Jeremy Wade, the guy from River Monsters, believes it is true. What he believes is kind of like what me and Steven talked about, like with Chupacabra, for example, to where these cryptids could be real. It's just maybe it's an animal we have not yet discovered. The reason why I say that is because one of the theories that Jeremy Wade had is that this is probably an unidentified octopus that we've never seen before.
Okay, so he doesn't necessarily buy into the whole half shark, half octopus thing, but
He
he
does.
says maybe it's a new type of octopus.
Yes. Well, what he thinks is there's such thing as called. I tried the best to look this up and understand it, but it's called a mimic octopus. Ooh, a mimic octopus.
Mimic octopus. All right, tell me about him.
So a mimic octopus they're mostly seen in the Indo-Pacific region. It uses it disguises itself. It is noteworthy for being able to impersonate a wide variety of other marine animals. So it's an octopus, but it can mimic itself to make itself seem like a different animal. So what Wade was kind of going off of, and I kind of can go off of it too, is that possibly this is a larger version of a mimic octopus that is up to 50 feet or however big. And it's got all this room to grow. And maybe it's a new species we never encountered. But if it is a mimic octopus, possibly what it's done is try to mimic sharks to scare away people. And that when people saw it disguised as a shark, we're like, oh my gosh, it's half shark, half octopus. And then the legend just grew.
Yeah, no, yeah, really, really fascinating stuff there. So, okay, mimic octopuses, but just a giant one potentially.
Yep.
Neat.
All right. So, your thoughts, Stephen, before we go further.
There's enough reports to where I don't want to say it's nothing. I kind of like the theory that it's a new type of octopus or a new type of other creature.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as believing in it, I don't know if I believe in it as commonly described, but if it is a new octopus, I could buy that. So I think that would be the theory I buy into. It's a
Yeah.
new kind of something, and yeah, maybe maybe we call it a Lusca, maybe we call it as something else. But I would tend to lean towards that theory. What about you?
I could see that. I definitely think like, and we'll talk when we talk about future cryptids and everything. I do think there are some cryptids out there, especially when it comes to like the ocean, that could be very much true. Like I think the Kraken could be real. I think there's these different creatures in the ocean that I think could end up being true, and I think the reason why they could end up being true is just because I mean the ocean we've barely explored. I think we've explored like 98% of the ocean, and it's like there's so much left to explore. There's
I
no
was gonna,
telling.
there's a lot we haven't seen.
There's no telling what could be staying at the bottom of the ocean near the Bahama Island. You know, could it actually be something that is half shark, half octopus? Maybe we just haven't discovered it yet. Or could it be just a larger mimic squid that people have seen? Maybe. Who knows? And I think with the ocean being so big, I don't think we'll ever find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, who's to say? So
So we'll get into us hunting this, and I'm actually going to go ahead and tell the viewers. So my ChatGPT stories are fixing to change a little bit, and that's because I was using my own personal email for ChatGPT, and now I'm using Beyond the Campfire. So I was able to basically give it a whole new fresh up, and that me and Steven are actually going to be doing a lot more with these ChatGPT stories where we're actually hunting and we're actually like really looking for it. So hopefully the new ones from my end will be pretty good and pretty eye catching and pretty worthy of hanging out. So yeah, you ready for it, Steve? Because this one's got some action.
yeah, no, let's go for it.
All right, into the belly of the blue, the hunt for the Lusca. You ever hear a place breathe? Not the wind blowing over an empty plain or the creak of trees in a forest. I mean a place with lungs, with a pulse, the kind of breathing that's wet and guttural and comes from a throat carved through limestone and salt water. That's how the blue holes of Andros Island sounded that night. Like the earth itself was alive, like it was whispering, waiting. And that's where Sahil and I found ourselves, on the edge of one of God's deepest mysteries. We come to the Bahamas on a tip from a weathered old fisherman named Elias, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from coral and soaked in brine. He spoke in a voice that didn't rise above a whisper, even when the waves howled. There's a thing down there, he'd say, his fingers trembling around a chipped mug of rum. Lusca, half shark, half octopus, big as a boat. It pulls folks down, don't leave nothing but bubbles. Sahil raised an eyebrow. So it's a cryptid that lives in the ocean in underwater caves, and no one's gotten proof? Convenient. I just gave him a look. That's why we're here. The blue hole was a circle of still water, maybe 60 feet across, black as sin, sitting in the middle of the forest like a mirror dropped from heaven. It was ringed with broken limestone and sea pine roots that clawed toward it like they wanted to drag it closed, but it stayed open, hungry. The locals wouldn't go near it after sundown. Elias had pointed us toward it and said, "If the thing's real, it'll find you. It'll find you here." Sahil was already regretting everything. We could have just done a haunted mansion for the first episode, Will. Maybe an old sanitarium, something with walls. I chuckled as I strapped on the scuba tank. You got your theology degree. I got my grit. If that thing's down there, we bring it to light. You mean to kill it? I checked the harpoon gun slung across my back. That too. We went in just after dusk. The water was cold, colder than it had any right to be. It sucked the breath from my lungs as we descended, kicking past the limestone shelf and into the gaping throat of the earth. Sahil kept close behind me, his flashlight beam darting around like a nervous rabbit. The walls of the cave were smooth, pockmarked with ancient fossils and the odd shimmering of quartz veins. Stalactites jutted down like jagged teeth. The deeper we swam, the more I felt the pressure, not just on my chest, but in my soul, like something was watching us, waiting. 30 feet, 40, 50. Then we hit the chamber. It opened up like a cathedral. The flashlight beams barely reaching the far walls. The silt on the cave floor kicked up in clouds, dancing like spirits. And in the center, a yawning tunnel went even deeper. Sahil tapped my shoulder and pointed. A trail of like blood floated up from the tunnel and curled like smoke in the water. Then came the sound. You don't expect to hear anything underwater, but I swear to Christ, it was a moan, low and rumbling, like something too big to scare, like something too big to care, whispering through the stone. We hovered, hearts pounding. Then it struck. Tentacles, big ones, not long spaghetti strand things like a regular octopus, but thick, meaty limbs like tree trunks, all muscle and lined with suckers the size of dinner plates. One wrapped around my leg and yanked. I fought it, jamming the harpoon forward, firing point blank. Blood burst into the water as the thing released me. Sahil screamed through the mouthpiece as another limb coiled around his waist. I swam like a bullet, slashing at it with my diving knife. It let go, disappearing into the black. We kicked for the surface, lungs aching. When we broke through into the open air, the jungle was dark. Wind rushed through the trees, hissing like snakes. We pulled ourselves onto the rock, coughing and shivering. That thing, Sahil grasped. That's not just biology. That's demonic. You believe now? He looked at me, face pale. I think we're in something way deeper than just a cryptid. We set up camp 20 feet from the hole. A fire flickered against the trees. I laid out my weapons, 2 harpoon guns, 3 machetes, and a 357 I kept wrapped in an oilcloth. Sahil sat across from me, Bible in his hand, whispering prayers. You think God made this thing? He asked. I think there's things out there he lets walk for a time, I said. But even Leviathan answers to him. He nodded slowly. Then we need more than steel. We need faith. I handed him the rosary Elias gave me earlier. Say your prayers, brother. It came at midnight. The fire went out in a gust of wind that smelled like rotten salt. The jungle fell silent. Not a cricket, not a bird. Just that breathing again. Then water exploded from the blue hole. The Lusca rose. It was bigger than I thought, maybe 40 feet across, its upper half like a great shark, pale and scarred, its lower half withering like octopus limbs that slapped against the stone, eyes like wet onyx, fixed on us. Sahil froze. I charged. The harpoon lodged in its shoulder, barely slowing it. It screamed, yes, screamed, and surged forward. A tentacle wrapped me across the clearing, cracking a tree in half as I flew. Sahil shouted something. Latin? Scripture? The beast paused, then it turned on him. I fired again, this time straight into its eye. The tip exploded in a flash. I dragged it with a magnesium charge. It howled and thrashed, a limb grabbing Sahil and slamming him down hard. I ran in with the machete, hacking, yelling, bleeding. It backed toward the hole, dragging Sahil. I leapt. We went in together, me, Sahil, and the thing, back into the black. Underwater again. No light, just shadows and fury. I stabbed at it over and over. Sahil kicked free, but the Lusca coiled around me, dragging me deeper. Pressure crushed my ribs. Blood filled my mask. Then I saw it. Light. A rift in the cave wall, glowing blue. I shoved the harpoon in its mouth, fired the last round. The thing spasmed. The cave shook. Rocks fell. Then everything went black. I woke up on the edge of the hole. It was morning. Sunlight poured through the trees. Sahil sat beside me, bruised, wet, but alive. Thought I lost you, he said hoarsely. You did, I coughed. For a minute. He looked at the water. It's gone, or dead, or trapped. Either way, we lived. He held up the audio recorder, miraculously still working. We've got everything. I smiled. Then let's tell the world. Beyond the Campfire, Episode 1, Into the Belly of the Blue. We told the story that week. People didn't believe it. Said we faked the audio. Said it was just a giant squid. But those who've heard the moan, that deep, cavernous growl of something older than time, they knew. The Lusca is real, and we were just getting started.
Wow, that definitely was more brutal than I remember some of our others being.
Well, what I told ChatGPT, I said, well, we're like the Winchester brothers from Supernatural.
I
We're
like
here to
it.
document, we're here to hunt, and we're here to bring back evidence.
There you go.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
like the ribs breaking and the blood splattering, and I just like, okay,
yeah, I
okay,
got pulled in there, man.
there you go. I like it though. Yeah, I'm up for a more brutal, darker take on our chat
I
GPT.
really, I like because we talked about this in the podcast. Like, we want to have a comic book at some point, and like obviously we're not going to use ChatGPT to write our comic book. We're going to have actual people help us write it.
Yeah.
But like, I just like seeing that. Like, I could just picture me and you like in our scuba gear, sitting there swimming, and like we're fighting this kraken-like creature. And I like how
Mhm.
I do like that. Like, we didn't really win.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
beat it.
It kind of just happened that the way it
Now, don't
did.
worry. There will be more. Now we're not always going to fight these things. This one we just happen to have to fight.
Sure,
But
sure.
other ones, other cryptids, we probably won't really fight. We'll probably just document it. We might, you know, not always going to fight things. But that's our ChatGPT story. Any questions? Any thoughts, comments, questions? Oh no.
I
So as I was
still go ahead and
saying,
move it up. Yeah.
yeah. So any thoughts or comments? Well, we apologize for the minor inconvenience. Steven does not know how to charge a phone, and everybody picks on me about it. So I guess we won't know what his thoughts and comments are. But yeah, guys, I think this is a really great episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah. Is it an octopus? Is it real? Is it actually half shark? I don't know. But all I can tell you is stay clear of the water.